We've had the hottest year on record this year, back in July, but now we're going through a cold, wet and windy snap. So I'm going to cover a topic which I was trying to stay clear of. I've been tagged by Zulu X Ray on a three-way knife tag. I know Bushcraft and Fun thought I'd covered this topic previously, but as I say, I've been trying to steer clear of it. And the main reason behind that is the state of knife crime in this country has caused the media and anybody who speaks on television about knives to demonise them. So before I go into the three-way knife tag, I'm just going to touch on what is the current law regarding carrying knives in the UK. Right, so as I think I may have said, one of the reasons I'm slightly reluctant to do this video is because of the bad press knives have got in this country, particularly at the moment. And that is with good reason. You could argue we're possibly overcrowded, and at the moment we seem to have an epidemic of people going around stabbing each other. So you can argue as much as you like that the laws in this country regarding knives and firearms in fact are draconian, but you know, the circumstances speak for themselves. We've got too many times knives are in the news. So just before I get down to the nitty-gritty of my three-way knife tag, the most useful, most unusual and favourite knives, I just thought I'd just run through what the actual rules or law is in this country. And I've downloaded this file today from BASC, which is the British Association for Shooting and Conservation. And this is not the only file they've got regarding knives. They've got quite a few files, but I'll just read out to start off with the first paragraph. And the first paragraph reads: "It is illegal to have any sharply pointed or bladed instrument in your possession in a public place without good reason or lawful authority." And this fact sheet covers the laws of England, Scotland and Wales. So that's a pretty draconian first paragraph, when that would include many tools in a normal toolbox, including a bradawl. In fact, it would also make illegal where are we? That's the knife I normally eat my dinner with, and that's the fork I normally eat my dinner with. Well, both those items would be illegal to carry in a public place according to that first paragraph. Even little, you know, knives I use a lot. I mean, that is a throwaway knife I just put together with two pieces of plywood and a piece of sharpened stainless steel, just for taking the insulation off some wire. And that's a little handy knife, wood shaping blade that I just cut down from again, fixed blades. They're illegal for everyday carry. Now, luckily there are a couple of exemptions. And the biggest exemption that affects us normally in just everyday walking about is that there is an exemption in law for folding pocket knives. These must have cutting edges of less than 3 inches and do not lock. Now your Opinel knives lock, so that's not a knife you can just stick in your pocket and wander about with in the UK. It's illegal. It has a locking mechanism. You can, however, carry with you a Victorinox Swiss Army knife, because that is non-locking, and as we all know, as I know to my cost, many times the crosshead screwdriver, which is also non-locking, has folded up on me. Your knife that doesn't fold up on you, your Leatherman, that's illegal for an everyday carry because it has a locking blade. So that blade is now locked, can't close on my fingers. That makes it an illegal everyday carry in the UK. And when we talk about legal everyday carries in the UK, I've got a good knife here made by Manticore. It's got a blade of less than 3 inches. I can open it, I can actually open it and close it with one hand. And there is a little protrusion there which, if I grip it in my hand or with my thumb over it, it will prevent it from locking, from folding. But and it's in a nice leather pouch. But you know, if you carry it around with you openly, again, you're asking for trouble, because you'll upset somebody, and if you upset somebody, well, you've just broke the law. So there we go. So where does that leave us bushcrafters? Well, first, back to the first paragraph again. It is illegal to have any sharply pointed or bladed instrument in your possession in a public place without good reason. So if I'm out to do a day's bushcraft up the hills and I want to take a knife which is going to get me bushcrafting done, make me bow drill set, or help me make my shelter, or whatever lawful activity I'm going to get up to, then as long as while I'm travelling to that location I keep my knife concealed, my bushcraft knife, I keep it concealed. And when I do get to my location, it's not in open public and I am allowed to use the knife on that location, then fine. But if, for example, I have just been down doing some beekeeping, and quite often I will take a very long bladed kitchen knife with me, so I can cut the brace comb deep down in the brood chamber or the super where the honey's stored, so I can get the frames out, because the bees have a tendency to stick things together. Well, that's fine, but if I leave that in the car and I forget about it and I get stopped, forgetting about it is no excuse. And on that particular day I wasn't doing my bees, so be careful on that one. And we can argue about the laws all we like, but the laws are the laws, and ignorance of the law isn't going to save you if you get stopped under the wrong circumstances. So we are allowed to carry knives, certain knives, under a lot of circumstances. I wouldn't go down to the pub with that. I wouldn't even go on, you know, I'd be very reluctant to carry it on public transport. It'd certainly be in a bag somewhere where nobody could see it. There's a couple of other exceptions. Further exemption for the carrying of knives as part of either a national costume, such as the Scottish ski and do, or part of a religious obligation. So I don't think I'll be coming under any of those circumstances. So just This is one reason why I was reluctant to do this video, and one reason why we have to be so careful in the UK. And knives are at this time being demonised by the politicians and the news media, and again you can argue the reasons for that, but that's how it is. So right, now we've got that out of the way, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So I'll start with most unusual. Well, most unusual is, I don't have a lot of knives, and I don't treat knives as knives, I just treat knives as tools. And I was quite surprised that I actually have so many knives, and I haven't actually got all my knives there, I've just got what I could quickly lay my hands on. But over time you accumulate knives, you use knives, you find that knife was better for this reason or that reason, and it's just like a set of chisels. You'll use a chisel for internal work, a chisel for external work. So after a while you get to favour, and then you might want things that you want to bash and ruin and you're not bothered about, so you just start knocking things up for specific tasks. My unusual one, the first one, is knocked up for a specific task, and what it is a dinner type knife folded in half and sharpened, and that's fairly sharp. It actually, I heated it up to bend it, so it does lose its edge, but you can quickly get its edge back on with a file. And the reason I did that was so as I could carve out a scoop in a piece of wood. I'll do it on the flat, I don't want to cut myself. Okay, well it does carve out a scoop, so that until I bring myself to purchase one, if I find I need to purchase one, is for making the bowls in the spoons. So that's one candidate for my most unusual knife, and I've just put a bit of rubber band on just so as I can get a bit of better grip and apply a bit more force on. So that's how I regard my knives, as tools. And the other knife, which is most unusual, or I consider it most unusual, is the one that largely Paul of Manticore Knives made at our last visit to Bisley. So we made this knife, and it is, to all intents and purposes, a jolly good bushcraft knife. But the reason it's unusual is because we made it in a field with a piece of steel and a piece of railway line and half a gas cylinder as a forge, with charcoal and a few hammers, and well, there is a video on this one, and then Paul used a piece of leather which he sewed up. So it was made in a day. That knife was made in a day, and it's a good working bushcraft knife. So those are my two candidates. I don't see why you can't have two for your most unusual knife. That one looks just like a decent bushcraft knife, so it doesn't look unusual, but few of us made it in a field, so it is unusual. And that one there is unusual because it looks unusual even though it's just a bent over dinner knife, same knife that I eat my dinner with. Right, so that's unusual. Most useful, well, most useful is generally the one you use the most, isn't it? That's hard because I use different knives in different circumstances. I would have certainly have said this one, probably, bushcraft knife. This is my standard go-to bushcraft knife. If I was going to be dropped on a desert island and I just had to quickly pick one knife, it would probably be this one. And it's another one made by Paul of Manticore Knives, and it is a standard bushcraft shape. I can put a lanyard on it. I did have a lanyard on it. it holds an edge well. It is made of a hard sort of tool steel, so it will rust if it's not looked after. But and I've got a ferrocerium rod with it, a sharpener in there, a few needles in there, a few needles actually, and some ranger bands on there. So if I had to grab a knife, and I'd say this was probably my most useful, although I do tend to also use, especially if I go to the seaside, then I might take me stainless Mora companion with me if I go to the seaside. And just to ease the wear and tear on this one, I might also take my Bushcraft Black Mora, and we all know where this one came from, or you should do if you've been keeping an eye on my channel. So what we got now? Let's say, well, I can't decide between that one and that one for most unusual, but certainly for a most useful, I'm going to say that one. And then favourite, well, that would have to be my favourite as well. So let's move that one to favourite. Let's move that one to favourite. And most useful, it's looking a bit bad, isn't it? Because I've got Manticore knives here, and it's going to end up Manticore knives, and I was just going to say Manticore knives. So that would make, you know, would make it a total advertisement for Manticore knives. So let's say, let's bring this one into it. Now, I get a lot of roadkill, rabbits and squirrel mainly, but the occasional deer. And this is a knife which I found this knife in the woods, and it was broken. The blade should be locking, but the mechanism for locking it was broken. So rather than muck about with it, I've just you get a steel type of epoxy for fixing metal objects, and I've just steel epoxied it in the open position, and I use that for a lot of skinning jobs because it's stainless, it holds a good edge. In between skinning, I can quickly, on a steel, I can quickly bring it up to scary sharp, and if it gets wet, if it gets, you know, if I'm struggling with bones or whatever, it's in a homemade, somebody gave me the sheath to it, and the sheath was slightly longer, and I just did a hatchet job on that and just super glued the ends. So see, I'm forced to think about it all now. So right then, so what we're going to say, well, we won't overdo it on the Manticore, so we'll say that the flipped over eating knife as a spoon knife is the most unusual. We'll say the most useful is the Manticore bushcraft knife, and we'll say the favourite for skinning, the favourite for skinning is this USA buck knife that I found and modified. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's my take on knives and bushcraft and fun. You thought I'd done this video or a similar one to it. Well, I haven't, but I have now, and I think my take on knives is fairly similar to yours. A knife is a tool, and quite often I will use the smallest knife that you can get away with for the task, which quite often is the best knife because you've got that power right close to the effort, if you like. It just means you can be more precise and keep things under control. But to all those who visited this site thinking they were going to see big scary knives, that's not what bushcraft's about. That's not what bushcraft's about at all. You know, I could quite easily say the most important knife, the most useful knife, it's the one I eat my dinner with, because I use it every day, more or less every day, not every day, but more or less every day. And then you've got for carry a little pocket knife, but again, in this country we do have to be careful, and I'm not gonna jump up and down and shout about the rules and regulations, because we are where we are because of the circumstances we're in, and that's unfortunately too many people in this country are seeing knives as a weapon rather than a tool. So it's funny how this all goes, isn't it? Because I had something else planned and things crop up, and here we are talking about knives, something I wanted to steer clear of, but it's done now and I'm not going to overdo it, other than maybe plug my friend again, because he's going to find, I don't think they've actually changed the law yet. It has been debated and I think it has been decided upon. He did and does make very good bushcraft knives, but the law in this country is changing so that you cannot send a knife by mail order except to a business. You can't, an individual can't order a knife and expect it to arrive by mail order. It has to go to a business address. So that's going to affect a lot of the little knife makers in this country, who I think have probably got it hard enough when you realise how much work a knife goes into a handcrafted knife, as opposed to something which is stamped out largely by machines. So anyway, let's hope this generates the right interest and not the wrong interest. So I'm going to leave it at that. And just a quick word before I go. I never mention subscribers, I never ask for subscribers, and I'm not asking for subscribers now. I'd just like to say to those that do subscribe to my channel, it's appreciated. I say that because I've reached over 500 subscribers now, and I might do a separate video on why I started this and what my thoughts are on it, and really how much I appreciate the community and the subscribers. I'll leave it at that. It's long enough. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one in a week or so, because we all have to work, things happen. It's not a job, it's a pleasure, and I want to keep it that way.